Sometimes there's a version of you that people get comfortable with. And as you grow up and you become a different version of yourself, sometimes you disappoint those same people. Believe it or not, there is a version of me who used to be a Christian rapper. You think you know, but you have no idea. This is Late Bloomer Confessions, episode 5. Now, as you may already know, if you watched previous episodes, especially episode 1, you know that I grew up in a household that was dominantly Christian. We had to go to church 2, sometimes 3 times a week, every single week, religiously. Sunday, regular service. Tuesday, Bible study. And sometimes on Saturday, you might have to go and help with Vacation Bible School, or we might have to practice for a concert or do a play, or it might be something going on somewhere around the town. You know, we got to go Christmas Carol, or it's something that we got to do on Saturday. 2 or 3 times a week, every single week, we're doing something church related. Now, how does that relate to my music? That is basically what I was not necessarily forced to write about or rap about, but that was my life at the time. So naturally, that is what came out in my art. And becoming that type of artist, that's an episode for another time. An artist who is able to authentically portray or speak about what's going on in his or her real life. That is a separate part of the evolution of me as an artist, which I'll touch on in another episode. But lo and behold, that is or was who I became. And so all of my art reflected my real life. I'm going to church. I'm growing up as an adolescent, as a teenager. Around this time, I just graduated high school. So I am transitioning from high school to college, and in the span of about a year and a half, 2 years, it was now that I think about it, my tenure as a Christian rapper was very short-lived. So it was about a year and a half, 2 years. I had started, making entire albums around the theme of me as a young teenager growing up as a Christian. I would make songs like, rapping about how I like this girl, but we shouldn't have sex yet, you know what I'm saying? But when we do get married, we gonna make love all night. It was called All Night Long. There was another song called 3 Times a Lady, where I, show appreciation for the 3 women that had the biggest influence in my life. So these were all, like real interpretations of my perspective of who I was as a young Christian man. No cursing, no profanity, no talking about drugs or anything, even though that was a part of my life. It didn't fit the spectrum of trying to portray myself as a Christian. So, like I said, a year and a half to about 2 years, I made 3 different albums, and everybody is supporting me. You know what I'm saying? I was making music that, my mom can be proud of showing to her friends, because there's no cursing. This is something that people can play with their kids, you know what I'm saying? So the music that you can actually, as you're taking your kids, to school, you can safely play, versus the other hip hop that, had a lot of, profanity and sexual innuendos and all types of things that, hip hop normally has. this was totally separate. So that was in that era. However, something very pivotal happened in my life. As I said before, I graduated high school and I started attending Columbia College downtown. It was a school of the arts. It's still there. Shout out to Columbia. And I was attending this quote unquote speech class. I signed up for the speech class. Now, the professor had no intention of teaching us speech. There was no speech curriculum at all. What he would teach us was things like philosophies. He would teach us about what socialism is. You know what I'm saying? Different things about, different areas in life. Everything else other than speech, he would teach us. But there was this one class that I attended. And he introduced this way of thinking that changed my life forever. He taught us about looking at things from an objective point of view, meaning looking at things from multiple perspectives, not just yours. Before he taught that to me, I had never ever thought about thinking about life in that way. But when he taught me that, immediately in that same class, in that same day, what I instantly went to was my life, going to church every single week. What that objective point of view forced me to do in my brain, it forced me to take myself out of who I was, out of the regular curriculum of doing what I was told to do. I'm going to church because my mom told me to do it. Taking myself out of that and putting myself in a frame of thought of someone who didn't grow up in a household like me. A stranger, someone who was never introduced to Christianity or never been to church a day in their life. How would they look at that? If a stranger walked into our church on Sunday, what would they think? How would they feel? And when I did that, that made me realize and question, is this what I really want to do? Is this really what I believe? Is this something that I'm doing on my own volition, or is this just something that I'm doing because I was told to do it? And this was something that I had to express to my best friend's mom. Rest in peace, Miss Pat. I was in the car with her and we were driving, and she asked me, she was like, "Man, Darian, we haven't seen you in church in so long. What's going on? What is everything all right? What's going on with you? What's happening?" And I expressed to her, I said, "Miss Pat, I have to be real with you. The only reason that I was going to church was because my mom told me to go to church. That's it. When I moved out of my mom's house, I had no desire to wake up on Sunday morning to go to church. And sometimes that naturally happens when you push somebody to do something for so long, for so many years. When they eventually have the freedom and the ability to make the decisions on their own, 9 times out of 10, they would refrain from doing what they were forced to do for so long. Now, let me say this, and let me, make this clear. I do not regret the way that I was raised. I believe my mom did a fantastic job. I believe she did what she felt or what she believed was the best thing to do, the best way to raise her children. And I have to be honest, I would not have it any other way. I had a great childhood. And that's largely due to the way that my mom raised us. So shout out to my mom. And this is in no way a knock against Christianity or church or Christian rap or anything, associated with Christianity. This is just me expressing my reality and my perspective and the way that I grew as an artist and as an adult, as a human being. And the shift happened like that when I became an adult and I was able to make decisions for myself. And I believe that this transitioned into my art. So now I was a Christian rapper. I was gaining notoriety as a Christian rapper. But then when I made that shift, now all of a sudden, I am not living the same way that I was living before as a young teenager in my mom's house, having to go to church 2 times a day or 2 times a week. That is no longer my life. So now what is my art about? And that's when I had to transition into, okay, now I have to be real. Now I have to rap about what's really going on in my life. Now I have to actually talk in my art, just like me and my homies talk all the time. And lo and behold, this is the way that I spoke when I was around my guys. This is the way that I spoke when I'm with my brother, when I'm with, influential male figures. We spoke freely. We didn't have to hold our tongues. So why should my art not reflect that? And the moment that I was able to do that, and I believe that in any aspect of life, the moment that you are able to make decisions for yourself, it is extremely liberating. You remember the first time that you got your license, and maybe you had your own car, maybe you had to use your parents' car, but that first ride that you took by yourself, how liberating that felt. That is how liberated I felt as an artist. Like, wow, I'm actually able to speak the way that I want to speak, how I speak to my guys, or how I speak anywhere else outside of when I'm in a room with my mom, or when I'm in a room with somebody, like a pastor or somebody that I have utmost respect, that don't speak that way. That was the ultimate transition that I had to make. And now the reality of it is also, and this is something that, maybe other people experience, maybe you experience, as you gradually become that free person, that human being that is totally authentic and real to who you truly are, you garner the risk of losing support of people who were attached to that old version of you. That might be something that you experience. What is that thing or that version of you that you outgrew, but other people that are close to you is attached to that old version of yourself? They miss that old version. You outgrew it, but they miss it. They say, man, and if I could count how many times my mom told me, man, you don't need to curse. Why are you cursing, babe? You're so much more talented than that. And she has a good point. However, Mom, this is me. When I'm not with you, when I'm not around you, this is how I speak. This is the grown-up version of your baby. And I'm not expecting her to accept that. And neither should you expect anybody to accept who you are authentically. You should accept the risk of losing support. And that is the ultimate truth. That is the reality of the situation. When we mature and when we evolve, not everybody evolves with us. You have to accept that. As a late bloomer, you have to accept, especially as you bloom later in life. Not everybody is going to be okay with you doing, you still trying to, you trying something new after 10, 20 things that you already tried and failed at. You still trying to. Not everybody is going to go on this road with you on this journey. And you have to be okay with that. You have to accept that. And that is the lesson of today. Not being afraid to be who you really are, because it's so liberating and it is therapeutic, man. I'll tell you, man. It is therapeutic to be yourself. What version of you are you still holding on because you're afraid to lose the support of people close to you? Where in your life are you filtering yourself because you're afraid of what other people will think? That's something that you have to understand and you have to figure out. And that's all I have for you today, man. My name is Fable Angelo. If you enjoyed this content, I release a new episode every single week. Don't be afraid to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another episode. Hit that like button. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And if this resonated with you and you would like to continue this journey with me, the journey of becoming a late bloomer as well, I have something that I created exclusively for you. This is something that I only make available to my late bloomer tribe. Nobody else has access to this. Now, if this is something that interests you, if this piques your curiosity at all, click the link in the description, enter your information, and you will have instant access. And with that being said, until we meet again, I bid you farewell. God bless. I'm out.